Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Church Advance podcast. We're at the end of the year, 2024. What an awesome year, Luke. I tell you, man, I don't know if, I just thought of this, but man, I will tell you for our church and family and personal life, it's been one of the best years I've had in a long time.
Here, here.
I'm certainly thankful for it. And so praise be to God for a great year. Our church, I mean, we had a celebration Sunday where we talked about what God did in our church back at 1st of December. And man, I mean, our attendance increased, giving increase, taking on new mission projects, just the spirit. I mean, it's just been overwhelming.
Yeah.
And my personal health was able to see a turnaround there. And then just family's going great. I just praise God for 2024. I've had a lot worse years. And so sure you say the same, Luke.
Well, I'll three big milestones. I got engaged, bought a house, I got married. So I crammed a lot into 1 year. So 2024 has been
good to you, old boy. I can't wait to meet your wife one day.
Yeah. We're seeing if we can get us both down there for the conference. We're not quite sure if schedules are going to align, but we're going to try.
We're about 6 weeks away right now from Church Advance 5. Can't wait to see you guys here. We got some good people coming, good sponsors, great day planned. But as our trend has been since 2020, when we started what was the Brian Sams podcast, now Church Advance podcast, we end with the books of the year. And Luke, I know you're a reading machine this year. I think you told me a grand total of one really good book you read.
Yeah, I was saying before we started, I got the Audible subscription back in the day that gives you 12 credits a year, so one for each month. And I used to be the best about making sure I use that credit. This year, I have sucked. So the one book that I know, I might, like I said, Brian, you're going to lead this conversation. I may sprinkle in a few that come back to me that maybe I did or did not read this year. But one I do know I read this year, according to my Audible history, and it actually was very interesting, was the biography of Elon Musk. Man, that dude is truly a world-changing genius. I mean, it's a long book. It's about a 7 or 8 hour, I don't know how many pages that translates to. But man, just to see everything he's been through, he almost has hit rock bottom, almost hit like just complete bankruptcy, out of money once or twice, to now being the richest man in the world, and everything he's doing with, all the stuff in terms of SpaceX and Tesla. And, I mean, he's a weird guy in his personal life. I mean, and the book does not hide that, but his biography is, and I don't see how anybody sits down and actually reads that truly cover to cover. Like for me, it's like gotta have an audiobook for that one. But yeah, that is the one that I officially know I read this year. The others in here, it's like I can't remember. I'm like, maybe I read that this year, maybe that was last year. I can't quite tell. Maybe I'll mention them, and if it's a repeat from last year, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go for it, man. Luke, let's just be clear here. These are a couple books Luke may have read this year.
I have read, but I don't know if it was 2024.
Pretty sure you read them sometime in your life. Or at least you heard about somebody read them. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead, man. Give us a couple of them.
Yeah, I mean, another one is, and this is just very random, so like I said, I got married this year, and I had been doing the dating on and off for a few years leading up to finally, meeting my wife. And a book that really helped me, though, in that dating process was the book. It's called Attached. By, let's see, Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. It's not Christian at all. It's just a couple of psychologists who've done a lot with relationships, and it talks about the different attachment styles. Talks about, I believe it's anxious attachment, secure attachment, and then there's one other that I can't quite remember what it's. Avoidant attachment. What those who avoid attachment. It's really helpful. Again, I would say for pastors, if you're doing any sort of counsel in terms of marriages and relationships, being able to recognize and identify somebody's attachment kind of style, I guess they may call it. It's really helpful because, for example, somebody's avoiding, if their tendency is to avoid getting attached to someone, there's some clear markers of that. And then there's some clear ways to deal with that, according to this book. So, yeah, that's another one. And then, Brian, I know you mentioned this last year, but I did read it this year because I just looked at the date. So I finally got around to reading it this year, and I think this was your number one. So Steady Strength by Carrie Schmidt was excellent.
Excellent book.
Anything Carrie's done is gold. So
I actually read it again this year. I read it as I was going through it with our group of leaders in our church. So yeah, shout out to Carrie again. Great book. Well done. And looking forward to his next one. I think it's coming out soon.
Yeah. So that's it for me.
So
you take it away now.
Man, we had some good books. I'm at 23 this year. Not necessarily the biggest year I've ever had. And honestly, a lot of them were okay. I read some books about giving that won't even make honorable mention. They were okay. I read some books about stress and relaxation that honestly weren't like life-changing, dramatic, but I read them. But I do have 10. I've got a top 10. I'll tell you what I want to do this year, Luke. Instead of trying to do, I'm going to give away my number one book, the book that was most impactful. I'm going to give it away on a digital or audio format. If there's one of three ways that you can enter this. Okay, you can either give us a review on podcast. And by the way, when you do that, I got to know who you are. So if you did it, send me a message, because sometimes you got this like
take a screenshot. Take a screenshot and email it to.
It's like if you have this name like J Smith 25264, I may not know who you are. So sometimes that's been a challenge. But if you give us a good review, number one, you'll enter the drawing. If you tag Brian Sams and Luke Clayton by sharing our podcast or episode on any social media platform that we can see, whether it's X, I'm only on Instagram and Facebook, tag us, either me or Luke, with sharing our podcast, encouraging others to read it.
And that's going to be at Preacher Sams, right?
I'm at Preacher Sams.
I'm at J. Luke Clayton. So that's who to tag.
You'll put a link to our Facebook and Instagram and I guess the X. We have a Church Advance X account, but I'm not really on there.
Yeah, okay, if you're on X, just tag me at J. Luke Clayton. Yeah.
Okay, great. So Luke will put those up there for you. Give us a shout out. That'll enter you in. I'll randomly draw through a number sequence a winner that I will send the book that most challenged me this year. And I'm just going to start with it because I just thought it was excellent. And it is Take Your Family Back by Jefferson Bethke. And I will tell you, Jefferson Bethke is a good writer. He also has a number two. I'm gonna give you a second book because it's by him as well, but it's in my top 10 list, called To Hell with the Hustle by Jefferson Bethke. And I'll tell you, man, he just is like, he's basically detached from the traditional, world of hustle and bustle and build this and build this. I mean, he's about family. He's about, he talks a lot about Sabbath, and it just has some really great, but Take Your Family Back was just a challenging read. And I'm always interested in reading stuff about prioritizing my family more and about getting away from this chaotically busy world that is just driving us all to early graves. It's diluting our relationships. It's making us seem inaccessible to our church and our friends and our family. If we don't have time for people and we don't have time for our family, we're out of balance. This guy is dialed in, man. And I want to highly recommend those two books, Take Your Family Back, To Hell with the Hustle. But we're going to be giving away a copy of Take Your Family Back because I believe it is so good for those of us. Many people listening to this are in ministry. I think it could really help you. Again, we'll link to all these top 10 in a minute. But that's my number one book, Take Your Family Back by Jefferson Bethke. So now let me get to a third book that was excellent this year. It's called The Strength You Need by Robert Morgan. This is more of a devotional book. It's on the book. I tell you this verse, he just Robert Morgan is a great writer. If you've ever heard of anything he wrote, is good. He's wrote Red Sea Rules, and many other books. But this one's the one I read this year by him. He just has a way of churning a passage of scripture and into a book. And so the verse he really builds the book off of is from the book of Deuteronomy, where it says, "As thy days, so shall thy strength be." The premise of the book is God has sufficient strength for whatever days you are facing. And man, is it just a good book. Highly recommend that. Number 3 on the list, The Strength You Need by Robert Morgan. And just on top of that, let me just go ahead and recommend pretty much anything the guy wrote. Probably is worth your reading. He's an excellent writer. Most people have read the Red Sea Rules, and that it is just an extraordinary book. All right, number 4. Number 4 is off of my normal read. I have not done much of this before, but this would be a secular biography. And The Good Neighbor, the life and work of Fred Rogers. Guys, I want to tell you, you got to read that book. Luke, I just didn't know. I mean, obviously, I'm sure when I was a little kid, I watched a little bit of Fred Rogers. I don't remember him like dominating my life as a kid. But I mean, who hasn't heard of Mr. Rogers?
I would say he dominated mine. I watched him every day.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I did. I don't remember a whole lot about it. I mean, I know I did. And there's obviously things I remember about Mr. Rogers. So I know I watched him. I don't remember him being so iconic with me.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you what I know I didn't know. I mean, all I knew about Fred Rogers, he had this kids program. What I didn't know about Fred Rogers was how significant he was in child development. I mean, in the medical fields with child psychologists. He was the guy who brought open, honest, introspective conversation with kids while everybody else was throwing pies in each other's face just to make kids laugh. And this guy was so innovative and so in touch, because one of my favorite stories from the whole book is he agreed to go on the Oprah Winfrey Show, and he told her before he went on, he said, I there cannot be any kids there, because if the kids are there, I'm not going to be basically paying attention to you. I'm going to be paying attention to the kids. And they didn't listen to him, and they brought kids, and that's all he did the whole show. He brought the kids up, spent time. This guy loved children and talked to children and ministered to children in a way that had 2 significant impacts on my thinking as a ministry leader. They became the 2 words that are defining the way that I'm working right now. And here they are. Here's 2 words I think that every pastor needs more of. And I needed it more probably than most guys, just because I'm bullheaded sometimes. But 2 words that Fred Rogers taught me: slow, kind. He was slow and kind. I mean, just hit pause on the episode right now and just look up an episode on YouTube. The guy was slow.
Yep.
And he was kind. And it wasn't just the children. I mean, he was kind to, was it the mailman that was African-American? Is that right? Was it the mailman?
I don't no, I know you're talking about, it wasn't the mailman, but there was a recurring character.
I was out of normal during that time.
Yeah.
I mean, in that regard, reminded me of Billy Graham, who broke down racial barriers. We don't think of those people as racial barrier breakdown, but they did a great job, and they were kind. And then slow. Just, man, guys, I don't know. I have been thinking a lot about slowing down, slow down more and more and more. I've been guilty of it more than anybody, of just trying to cram more in and go to more meetings and preach more places and do more stuff. And And I tell you, I've spent this year trying to unpack more of it, get rid of more of it. I've cut back some of the work responsibilities that I took that were not at River City Baptist Church, and he helped me with that. And I appreciate it. It's a very, very, very good book.
Yeah.
And I would highly recommend reading that one. That's number 4. Let's go number 5 here. Mark Buchanan wrote the book, The Rest of God. That's on Sabbath. I have read that book before, but I revisited it again on my vacation this year, and he really, really helps you understand the importance of Sabbath. Luke, I think we're missing something here. I think we don't. I think culturally, Americans are out of touch with the rest of the world when it comes to work weeks and productivity, and that's all we talk about: get more, have more, do more. I don't know if that's the way God intended for us to live. I mean, think about this: before modern electricity, people were in bed at dark and up at daylight.
Yeah.
But then we somehow elongated our days,
Yeah.
elongated our work, and we're not healthy, we're not strong, we're not good. Ministry people are burnt out. What about a day off?
Yeah.
What about a Sabbath lifestyle? What about
Yeah.
resting in God? What about trusting Him? What about more prayer, more solitude, more simplicity? These books have been challenging me, man. I got to tell you.
Hmm.
I spent my whole morning this morning with people, all morning, start at 7:30. Didn't get in the office till about 1 o'clock. And it was just one of the best days I've had in a long time.
Yeah.
I had a 20-minute phone call with a guy that hadn't been to church in 2 years.
Yeah.
I didn't say a word. He called me and talked to me for 20 minutes. All I did was listen.
Yeah.
And before, I'd have been trying to find the quickest exit ramp and, hey, I got to go, but, I just learning this thing about slowing down, and really, really, really helped me. So, man, I appreciate the Lord teaching me that this year. And man, what a book! What a challenging book. The Rest of God. Let me review here. Number 1, Take Your Family Back. Number 2, To Hell with the Hustle, both by Jefferson Bethke. Number 3, The Strength You Need by Robert Morgan. Number 4, The Good Neighbor, The Life and Work of Fred Rogers. Number 5, The Rest of God by Mark Buchanan. Number six would be Enduring Ministry by Jackson Hester. I suppose if there's anything else that just speaks to me is my desire to finish strong. Endurance, pastoral grit, whatever you want to call it, stickiness, not giving upness, whatever your word is. I think that we need more of that in our ministry. I think we're too quick to quit. I think we're too quick to look at problems as need to be ran away from or avoided. And I think we just need to stay faithful, man. I mean, I'm enjoying Luke right now. I'm getting ready to start year number 9. Well, I'm in year 9. I'm in year 9 right now. I am reaping from the benefit of year 9 of enduring some real challenges in our church. And now, I mean, what if I would have quit? What if I would have quit year 3, year 4, when things were really, really, really tough? I think there's something about sticking to it. And a lot of people maybe give up a little too easily. And that book was really helpful, Enduring Ministry. And then let's see, that was 6. Number 7, Trust and Inspire by Stephen Covey. Man, this was a really good book. It's a leadership style book. It's about empowering those around you and trusting them to accomplish the work. It's about building synergy, teamwork. One of the real concepts in that book that helped me a lot was flattening the hierarchy organizational chart and making it more of shared responsibility and empowering people to do their work. That was a tremendous blessing. I've given that book out to several people this year. Next, let's see, this would be number 8. Just really started this one, so I haven't really finished this one. I will have it finished by the end of the year, but Criswell, a biography on W.A. Criswell by O.S. Hawkins. And O.S. Hawkins has been in that Dallas area for years. He's part of Southwest Seminary, may even be involved in that now. Worked with Criswell. I think he pastored even First Baptist Dallas at some point in the wake of Criswell. Criswell was a bigger than life figure in the Southern Baptist world. And I'm just so, so thankful I've read his autobiography, which is fantastic, but O.S. Hawkins had a unique relationship with him. And I'm excited about diving into this book more and finishing that one up. I'm about to finish this one, A Chance to Die by Elizabeth Elliot. That's on the life of Amy Carmichael, which is a classic, and yet so challenging. I gotta tell you, man, Amy Carmichael was otherworldly. She was she was different, man. And so yeah, just if you want to get challenged, if you want to realize how temporal we are, you need to read. Amy Carmichael lived in a different planet, man. She was something special. And then one final book, man. I met this is number 10. I met Daniel Henderson this year. He's become not necessarily a close friend, but just a great guy. We communicate a little bit. He is he has a ministry to pastors. He's got the 6-4 fellowship. And Daniel Henderson has really dialed in on some great truth. He's got a book called Transformative Prayer, and it's about Holy Spirit-led prayer. Worship-led, I guess is how he words it. Man, has it been challenging to me to be more fluid and dynamic in my prayer life, being more responsive to Scripture, circumstances, and just God's truth, leading me into more intimate, Spirit-led prayer rather than just like list-based. He really challenged me. I appreciate him. He's got some other great books, but that one's the one that I've finished this year. And so shout out to Daniel Henderson, great guy, former pastor, and now has just a really great ministry to pastors. And check him out on the Acts 6-4 Fellowship, where helps pastors focus on the ministry of the word and prayer. It's been a good reading year. I enjoyed these books. I'm ready to dive in next year. Got some queued up, ready to go. And Luke, man, we appreciate our listeners.
Yeah.
And Happy New Year to everybody. Let's go see God do some great things in 2025. And hope to see you guys here in about 6 weeks at the Church Advanced Conference, February 5 and 6. It's a one-day event predominantly this year with guest speakers, Dr. H.B. Charles and Dr. Mike Stone and myself. Until then, man, God bless you guys. Happy New Year. We'll see you next year.